Hey everyone, welcome to the Gyrl podcast. I'm Kyra Mitchell Lewis, and thank you all for joining. Hope everyone is doing well. I hope you're having a great week. So it's time again for a new career-focused episode of the podcast. Last time, let's just do a recap from our last time together. Last time we talked about 5 questions you should ask yourself when considering a career change. So, have you exhausted all the opportunities at your current position or in that career field? Everyone falls in a slump sometimes, but we just want to make sure that we are asking ourselves the right things before we make a jump. So, number 1, are you thinking long-term, or is this an emotionally fueled decision? Number 2, are you only thinking about money? Is this a financial decision? Because money will come, friends. So just make sure that you're not being driven completely by a financial decision. 3, will your skills and training cross over? Are they transferable skills? 4, do you know what you want? What do you really want to do? What brings you joy? Where do you find purpose? Have you thought about all of those things before you make a jump to a new thing? And then lastly, it's really a follow-up to this last one. Have you done all the research for the new opportunity, the new position, the new company, the new job, whether it's taking a leap, starting your own business? Have you done all the research, and is it a sustainable move? So all of those things are things that you should definitely consider when considering a career switch. So if you missed that full episode, after you listen to this one, of course, you can go back, you can listen to it, you can watch it on YouTube. Where else, can you get all these like hand movements and, from your host? You won't see that if you're listening, but if you're watching, you'll see all of it. Okay. All right. So let's move on. All right. So today's topic is passive leadership and its effects on employee well-being. All right. Let's just start with the basics. We'll start with defining or a definition of, it's not the be-all, end-all definition, but one that I did a lot of research on, came to this definition. Passive leadership is defined. They define passive leaders as those who avoid or delay taking necessary actions when problems arise. This might be seen in managers who refrain from rewarding and punishing or disciplining employees when they should. So it's not just that they don't rise to the challenge when there's an issue, but they also don't rise to the challenge to celebrate their teams when they have a win. So we're going to talk through some ways today. We're going to talk through ways you can determine if you're experiencing passive leadership in the workplace. So I want to start here. And what we'll do is we'll start today with, just identifying if you are in a passive leadership environment. And then next time we'll look at what active leadership looks like. And then we'll try to wrap it up with some ways, some things that you can do, some actionable items. But today's about understanding and just oh, wow, okay, that resonates with me. I'm in this type of environment. Okay. Excuse me. All right, so let's start with just the fact that passive leadership, it is a major problem in workplaces everywhere. So if you already know, you're listening, you're like, Kyra, I already know, girl. I'm in a passive leadership, environment, and I got it. It's not just you. It happens everywhere. And it happens with all people in different types of roles. Like it or not, team members look to their leaders to provide direction, guidance, to solve problems, and to make decisions. I know a lot of employees are capable of doing these things for themselves, but they often lack the one key ingredient that is needed, which is the authority, which often lies in the hands of their managers and their leaders. Now, if you've got a passive leader who has like given you, full authority to make decisions and run with it, great, cool. I've been in a couple of those situations with more passive leaders, but I've been given the authority to lead and to, make decisions myself. So when you don't have authority, though, for those who don't, to make changes that are required, you are relying on a leader to help you. And if the leader doesn't act and waits too long to take any type of action, and if the team doesn't see that person as someone who is an active leader, many people begin to disengage. They disengage from the leader, from the team, and they're critical of the leader. They begin to, it's what people do. They start to talk behind the scenes about, oh, this person never wants to make a decision. This person never gives us any direction. It's the first step before seeing decreased motivation, helplessness, and apathy in a team. So it could be something, and I think it's really important for leaders. So for leaders out there who, may be listening. And if you're charged with managing and leading and guiding a team, and you may fall short in some of these areas, it's really important to be able to take note of that and turn it around, because this is what happens when teams don't feel like they have support. They will disengage. They will just start to pull away. So a lot of times, when leaders don't take action, it is again, passive leadership. These leaders are just waiting for problems sometimes to just sort themselves out, right? Like it'll fix itself. Or maybe they don't know how to proceed. Maybe they don't know what the next step is. Or sometimes leaders can be just so disengaged that they just really don't care about how things are moving. So all those are problems. All three of those, letting someone sort something out, letting the chips fall where they may, not knowing how to proceed, being very so disengaged that you just don't care. These are all massive issues. Now, in some cases, passive leaders are also their feet are sometimes tied by those in roles higher than them, and it can make it difficult for them to make changes that are needed, right? So, but, I hear all that. And I think we all as leaders, I've had leaders that have had leaders who have held up progression. But I think it's really important for the leader to be able to pivot and to be able to find other ways. So I never want to hear a leader say that, well, I can't do anything because my boss has my hands tied. Okay, your boss may have your hands tied on these, let's call it 3 things, but what can you do to in the other because the other 8 things, can you make some traction on the other 8 things, and those 3 you revisit? I'm gonna drink a little water here. I've been doing a lot of talking. So it's really important that leaders take action rather than sitting idle and just waiting for a problem to go away. Because guess what? That problem is not going to go anywhere. It's just going to it's going to just it's going to grow. It's going to gain. It's like throwing fuel on the fire. It's just going to get bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And you will have to eventually, like, you have to do something eventually. All right, so let's talk about the passive leader environment. And I'm going to give you 4 ways to know if you are in a passive led environment. Number 1 is passive leadership means failing to provide feedback. So this is like the first, and this is a very common example, is that a lot of times passive leaders fail to provide meaningful feedback to their teams. They complete, like, say the team does a really big project, and they're looking for some type of feedback. It's like the leader might be like, the leader's not giving anything, meaning they're not giving meaningful or constructive, feedback. Without it, when you don't do that, when people don't know where they stand. So it's not just looking at it and giving feedback in the sense of just on even a project. It's also relating to performance. When you as a leader meet with your team members, and you've got either a weekly or bi-weekly one-on-one meeting, you should always be giving real-time feedback. I personally prefer to give my team like feedback. I always am taking notes of things, so I can remember to tell someone, because one of the worst things to do, and I've always said this as a manager and leader of people, it is so horrible to just keep a running tab and then wait for someone's performance review to tell them about all the things that they need to work on. I mean, I think that a transparent relationship between a manager and a team member means that you're always trying to help that person grow all the time, meaning you're always telling them, like, hey, in that meeting, next time when you're presenting X, maybe do it, do it, maybe add this, or maybe write down your notes, maybe make sure you have some key points to go over versus just winging it. Like, those things are constructive and can help someone for the next time they present, as opposed to you waiting. Because I've had it both ways in my career. When I was younger in my career, I had a lot of managers who just always waited. It was like, oh, this Christmas present of like, for your review. Now I'm just going to tell you like all the things you need to work on. And that's very demoralizing for a employee to think that you've been doing good work and no one's told you like along the way that you need to do something differently. I mean, it's just flying blind, basically. And you're flying blind, you're continuing to make the same mistakes that your manager honestly could have told you about, like maybe 1-2 months ago, as opposed to waiting. So along with giving constructive feedback, there's also just a simple act of showing appreciation to your team or your team members for a job well done. Providing feedback is a part of like that, is showing because it demonstrates that you as a leader, you care enough to spend time developing these people on your team, but also letting them know when they do something really well. A lot of times, some leaders only like to tell you when you've done something wrong. Only time you hear from them is when something's gone bad, and then it's like, we gotta, you're gonna get it. So make a practice of providing timely, relevant, meaningful feedback. Like, it should just be an ongoing feedback loop all the time. So make sure that that's happening if you're a leader. But with a passive leadership in a passive led environment, you're often not going to get that feedback. Okay, that's number 1. Number 2, passive leaders won't manage poor performance. They don't. I've seen it. Failing to manage poor performance is terrible leadership. And it is horrible no matter the workplace you're in. I mean, admittedly, it's not easy. That's the part that, no, as a manager, like, it's the part that everyone hates. I hate that part. I absolutely hate that part of like having to manage through performance issues. Like we all do. But as a manager, it is our job. It is our job. You know, it comes with the job, right? Of like helping someone. And I like to look at it as, you know, so it may be a performance issue, but it's also a development opportunity. So just a side note, you know, when I interview people, I always ask people like, what are their strengths? What do they see as their strengths? And what do they see as opportunity areas? And a lot of people always go, oh, I like it that you call it opportunity areas. And I'm like, yeah, because you don't look at it's just an opportunity to be better. Doesn't, no, I didn't ask you to say, tell me the 5 things that you're really bad at. I just said, where are there opportunities? And then, but what I notice a lot of times is that even with me referring to it as opportunities, a lot of times the interviewee will still, the candidate will still say, well, and then my weaknesses. And I'm like, no, opportunity areas. Because guess what? It could be something that is a strength of yours, but you just have an opportunity to develop in it more because you haven't yet mastered it, which we don't master anything. We just get better at it. So for leaders who see that there are issues and to do nothing is definitely a crime, a workplace crime, I call it. It's just important because if you let someone who is not living up to the expectations, and I think like another thing, the reason why it's hard for passive leaders to manage poor performance is oftentimes they have not set expectations for that person. That person's sort of freewheeling, you know, just like going through, floating through the existence at work, doing some things, but like not really. I mean, this is what I'll tell you, because I've seen this in the workplace. I've even been on teams with people who have not been performing at the level of others. So what happens is you have that person who, you know, say you're in a team meeting, person's like presenting on like, you know, what their top things are. And, you know, you're thinking to yourself, wow, like really like at your level? Or you're in a meeting and that person who is also maybe like a senior person, you know, I'm going to say, because this was an example, like, you know, I remember there was a person on my team who was like, we were all kind of like senior leaders under our main lead. And this person could never get a project started, could never get anything kicked off without having about 5 other people like tell them how to get it started, or for them to say, oh, well, maybe we can talk offline, and, you know, or maybe we can get on the call with so and so and so and so. And it's just like, to leader, you know, I'm thinking, do you hear this? I mean, how are they the leader, but they don't know, like, they don't have the fundamental like basics of like what to do to start a project, to keep a project going, and to complete it? Why do they need, you know, someone like me who knows, you know, I know how to do these things? Why are they not held to the same level, like standard, to do the same level of work when they're doing, you know, they have the same title? So I think like those are the types of situations where, you know, it can make other team members, you know, feel like, wow, like, this person just gets away with everything. So I think it just really is important for leaders to like talk in real time about performance, to give specific examples to the person, and to help the person figure out like how to improve so that they at least have a roadmap. I mean, a lot of places, it's like you can get to, when you've gotten down a road to where it's like, we really need to make some corrective actions. Most people call them like a PIP, performance. I had it. It was just there. It was right there. But it just disappeared. Performance improvement plan. There we go. Whew. So yeah, a lot of times you can put a person on a PIP, which then is a framework that helps to guide them. And it actually, at this point, it forces expectations. And so I think a lot of times if you get to that point of that means that maybe the person didn't necessarily understand the expectations that were set from the beginning. So that's why it's really important to be as clear and specific with your team members when you're talking about performance management, so that they understand, so that they know here are the 3 things that my manager is saying there's an issue with. And I need to, the expectation is for me to do number 1, number 2, number 3, and repeatedly do number 1, 2, and number 3 for the rest of my time here. Or if there are some that are set expectations that are set to, oh, well, you have to do this for the next 6 months. So, I just remember that is really important. And those are things. So you need to be able to hold your person on your team accountable, but you can only hold them accountable if they understand what the expectations are. And that comes with you as a leader managing and giving them feedback. Remember, number 1, giving you passive leadership means they're failing to give you feedback, which ultimately means they won't manage your poor performance if they're not giving you feedback. Okay. So let's move on to number 3. Passive leadership means failing to make a decision. Decision making is one of the key aspects of leadership. You need to have a certain level of authority to make key decisions. So this is up to leaders. So if you're a leader and you don't want to make decisions, first of all, if you don't want to make decisions, you shouldn't be a leader. So that's number 1. But if you are passively leading through the night and the days, then give your people the authority so that they can make the decisions. When you've got a complex situation, decisions are difficult. And in most cases, you won't be able to please everyone. However, when you fail to make any decision, to do anything, you keep your team in limbo and you're waiting for an outcome that never arrives. But let's just be real. I don't think that we are shocked by this. As you know, I just mentioned earlier that passive leaders usually are just sort of like, let's just see what happens. Pretty idle. They're going to just be out there hanging. They just, they don't want to get their feet dirty. Not their feet, sorry, their hands dirty. Yeah, sometimes I tickle myself. But without clear direction provided by a decision, team members will simply keep doing what they are doing. So even if this isn't such a good idea, if you don't provide direction, then people are just going to keep doing the same thing. I mean, especially if you have a team that needs that guidance and leadership. I mean, you can be in 2 different places. You can have, leaders you can have team members who are more tenured, who can get through the day. They can do their job. They can make decisions. They have the they have the relationships in the building. They know how to move projects down the field. But then you are going to have people who are not there yet. They don't have the relationships. They don't quite have the understanding. They don't have the business. They don't have the word I'm looking for. It's escaping me right now. But they don't have the ability just yet to understand all the pieces and parts to make the best decision. So those people are going to need some guidance from their leader. And when you don't provide that to them, then they just do the thing that they often default back to the thing that they were already doing because they're not getting any direction on, well, this isn't working. What do we do next? So I would say to anyone listening, when when passive leadership is happening and there's no decisions being made, it can be damaging to the motivation of the teams and the people on your team, because team members start to believe that you either don't know what to do, and that leads to a loss of credibility, making it harder to lead your team in the future. Now, if you're in a situation where you're facing a difficult decision, the starting point is to do what? The thing that we all know to do, right? Gather the information that you need to make the decision. And when people, your team, even if you're like a person who is, you sort of want to come together as a group and make a decision. I mean, you still have to be able to actually lead people to make that decision together if that's how you want to make it. So, so I think when people see that you're actually taking the steps to get to a decision, this can, it can at least satisfy them for the moment that, wow, okay, well, she brought us together, he brought us together, and we did come to a decision. But ultimately, they're going to want you to make a decision, because that's how you continue to be seen as a leader, is when you're able to make those decisions. Okay, let's go to number 4. Number 4 is passive leaders shy away from team issues. This one's the last and a very important example of, passive leadership. So, when leaders don't attempt to solve issues within their team. This example can tie back and overlaps really kind of to with the one earlier about managing poor performance, because when your team sees that there's someone on the team who is not a top performer, but they're not being managed, their performance isn't being managed, they're just able to keep doing the things that they've been doing, that becomes an issue for the team, a real issue. Also, there are other examples of team issues that might need solving. Perhaps your team doesn't have good processes, which has caused some errors, at work. So that's an issue. Maybe your team has a conflict with another team in the workplace, and there's a lot of friction, making it a not so pleasant work environment. That's another issue. So no matter what the problem is, it's important that leaders understand, and for leaders to, stand up, take a stand, and for your people to see that you are taking action to make progress and improve the situation. Otherwise, you'll see a similar reaction to what we talked about earlier: lack of motivation, disengagement, and credibility ruined, no trust. So you don't want to find yourself in a place where you're not able to, because at the highest level, when there's an issue, just let's use the example of a team. There's friction between you and another team. I work in marketing. So there's always a little friction between marketing and maybe if the product teams, there's a product development team, if there's a sales team, if they're not all on the same team, there's usually a little friction because they're managed usually by different leaders who normally think very differently. And marketing is one of those things where, let's just be real. Everybody thinks they're a marketer because I know I get stuff in my email all the time, or I do social media. I got a social media account. Everybody can do marketing better than the people who are in the place to do marketing. So that often leads itself to friction with other teams. And if your leader is not able to step in, have a conversation with that team's leader and try to figure out a better way for you to work together, it's just going to cause friction. It's just going to have your people on your team quite annoyed with that team, they're going to be annoyed with those people, but they're going to be even more annoyed with you because they feel like you're not doing anything about it, especially when 9 out of 10 times they're coming into one-on-ones and telling you, yeah, this person did this. Did you see that email from this person? They always want too much. We talked about this and they want too much. And then if your response to that every time is, well, just, I mean, it'll just work itself out, or just ignore that person. I mean, you can't ignore them forever. At some point, someone has to take a stand and say something, take an action, do something. That was a lot. That was a lot, my friends. So I will, in conclusion, wrap with that one and say, overall, active leadership is what teams need and want from us as leaders. It might be as simple as tackling a problem that you've been putting off or having a difficult conversation. But ultimately, your team just wants to see that you're taking some actions on their behalf to try and make their work days, their work environments, their work partnerships just a little bit better. All right. So that's it. Those are the 4, my friends. We're gonna just give you the 4 key things to look out for when determining if you're in a passive-led environment. All right. So 1, passive leadership means failing to provide feedback. Number 2, passive leaders won't manage poor performance. Number 3, passive leadership means failing to make a decision. And number 4, passive leaders shy away from team issues. So I think that I've given you enough to determine if you are currently in a passive-led environment. For some of you, you may have said from the time I mentioned the word, you were like, yep, I've seen that, been in that, in it right now, been in it before. And maybe some of you, as we were going through, you're like, wow, that is how my leader is. Hope that these are all, some good things that you've been able to take away just for today, just helping you to the awareness. Just want to bring awareness to it today. Next time we're together, we'll take a look at active leadership and how it fosters a positive and trusting environment. So before I go, I want you to all remember to head over to glowupgirl.com to access previous podcast episodes, resources, and so much more. If you are hearing these stories, in this career series and it's resonating with you, you're like, maybe it's time for me to do something different. Maybe I'm not finding purpose in my job, or maybe I love my job and trying to elevate. Or maybe it's I got to pivot because this is the place where no joy lives. During the workday, during the workday. But you know what? I'm always a person who thinks, you really can't separate the two almost. Your work day, you're going to bring it home. If you're like me, you work at home, you work at home, I work at home, and you're at home. So you would be bringing it into your work, your daily life. It'd be there. They're just like this now. So I've got a great little quiz. It's I think a 6-question quiz, and take you no time, and it's fun. Got a lot of fun things in it. But really just to help you try to figure out where you are. Are you happy? You're finding purpose, but now you're trying to elevate to the next level. 2, I'm just okay. Not really sure if I'm getting purpose. I don't know if I want to elevate. And then 3, nope, it's time for me to pivot. Got to go. Like I said, no joy lives here. So if you find yourself, in either 3 of those scenarios, I can personally help you. I would love to have a chat with you to discuss how I can personally help you discover your unique strengths and create a career that you love. Because ultimately, that's what it's about. If we're going to be working, we have, most of us need jobs, right? Or some form of income, doing some type of work. if you're going to be doing it, you may as well be doing something that you love. And I think a lot of times you might be in a place where you're trying to figure that out. Like, what does that look like? I may have gone to school for this, but I don't know that that's the thing that I want to do for the rest of my life. So I'd love to have a chat with you. Just as we're chatting here, just imagine it would be the same way. It'd just be the two of us talking though. So this has been a great chat. Definitely love when we come together and talk about these career topics because it's near and dear to me. But on the other side of that, you can also check out my regular interviews with amazing people doing amazing and inspiring things, and also giving you really tangible resources and tips that you can use in your daily life, whether you're a professional or an entrepreneur. Like I said, our next topic will be on active leadership. So really excited to come back with you on that one. If you have any questions, any career focused topics that you'd like for me to cover, shoot me an email at hello@glowupgirl.com. I'd love to hear from you. And on that note, I think that's it. I think we're done for today, my friends. So as always, I thank you all for spending just a little time out of your day with me to indulge me in this career talk. And I will see you all the next time. So until then, stay focused, fab, and glow up. Take care, everyone.